During World War II, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, every aspect of business and domestic life throughout the country was swept by the war effort.
After declaration of war, Washington Secretary of State Belle Reeves issued a report titled War Production in Washington.
In the 1940s, Seattle was ranked one of the highest in the nation for wartime contracts per capita. Between 1943 and 1944, ship contracts were worth an estimated 3 times the amount of manufacturing in Washington state.
Ship and aircraft production was one of the main functions for Seattle during the war effort for the nation. This caused for a general surge of employment in labor.
In terms of aircraft production, Boeing, seizing many commercial airports, produced over 8,200 planes for the military, this being the most in the country.
The Puget Sound region was home to many military bases during the Second World War, such as Payne Island, Whitby Naval Base, and Fort Lawton.
Here in Seattle's own Discovery Park, formerly known as Fort Lawton, was a giant military base that was extremely active during World War II. After the First World War, Fort Lawton was established to be a citizens' military training camp in 1922. This camp taught citizens of Seattle with an obligation to serve. Cadets would spend about 1 summer month here to train. Fort Lawton was a lot more active during the Second World War, given the activity in the Pacific Ocean. The fort became a hub for debarkation and embarkation during the Second World War, producing about 618,000 soldiers for debarkation to the wars in the Pacific. Unfortunately, Fort Lawton did not live up to its public expectations, as with the court-martialing of African American soldiers in 1944 following the Fort Lawton riot. The riot was started because of an altercation between African American soldiers and Italian prisoners of war. After the war, the uselessness of the fort caused for the Seattle citizens to wish for it back into the public's hands. And in 1970, their wish came true with the renaming of Discovery Park. However, parts of Fort Lawton remain in remembrance for the soldiers that saved it. Now, here we are in Volunteer Park. The name's changed over the years in its origins, from Lakeview Park to City Park, and finally coined as Volunteer Park in the year 1901 to pay tribute to the volunteer soldiers that fought in the Spanish-American War.
Here, adjacent to Volunteer Park, is Lakeview Cemetery that features the Nisei War Memorial. This monument behind me commemorates 56 of the Japanese soldiers who fought with the Americans during World War II. Beneath the names is an inscription from Franklin D. Roosevelt's Ode to Americanism. Americanism is a matter of the mind and heart. Americanism is not and never was a matter of race or ancestry. Second-generation Japanese Americans, known as Nisei, demanded the right to join the armed forces during World War II. They wanted to serve their country despite facing intense discrimination. About 800 of the 33,000 Japanese Americans who served in World War II died in combat. Though some of these Japanese American men served in other branches of the military, the majority served in the U.S. Army. Etched above are the names of some of their major campaigns: Rome, Arno, North Apennines, Po Valley, Rhineland, Naples, Faja, Ryukyus, Leyte, India, Burma, the Aleutian Islands, and Guadalcanal.
The Interrupted Journey Memorial, designed to commemorate World War II soldiers who were killed in action, was primarily funded by UW alumni who graduated in 1944, 45, and 46. Designed by Seattle artist John Gierlich and dedicated in 2002, the 3 rings encircling the pole represent the transition from peace to war to peace again, while the bronze plaques on the flagpole bear the names of men and women who attended the University of Washington and lost their lives supporting the war efforts between 1939 and 1945.
Harbor Island is a man-made feature of Seattle's Elliott's Bay. After its construction in 1909, it became a hub of ship-related work, including building or converting vessels for World War I. World War II created considerably more work. As fighting broke out in Europe, Harbor Island shipyards became an important part of the nation's war effort. They converted civilian ships for wartime use, repaired damaged ships, and built many new ones. Harbor Island comprised approximately 350 acres and was ideally located for building and repairing ships.
With threats looming, it was clear the U.S. infrastructure needed to expand. Harbor Island's ship work rapidly expanded. The newly incorporated Seattle-Tacoma Shipbuilding Company landed a United States Marine Commission contract for more than $10 million in September 1939 to build 5 large cargo vessels. These deals meant in total 3,000 workers would be hired to compete with the new need. In the beginning, 2,000 workers were hired to help reopen Todd Shipyard's Tacoma facility, where the cargo vessel hulls would be built. To finish constructing the vessels, another 1,000 workers would be needed at Todd Seattle on Harbor Island, roughly doubling the size of that yard's workforce.
In some cases, the federal government and Harbor Island's private shipyards essentially became partners, mostly under the direction of the Navy. 35 destroyers were produced in 5 years. Todd Shipyards in Seattle reported that during 1944, it repaired, overhauled, and converted 576 ships for war service.
During the Second World War, Boeing's factories produced a staggering number of aircraft, ranging from B-17 Flying Fortress bombers to P-51 Mustang fighters. Thousands of men and women on the home front kept the assembly lines humming day and night. Seattle built almost 7,000 B-17 bombers during World War II. Additionally, the 737 factory not far from Seattle in Renton produced about 5 B-29 Super Fortress bombers per day. These B-29s were widely deployed in the Pacific fight against Japan and were the ones to drop the atomic bombs. The biggest challenges that Boeing faced during the war was building the planes, but additionally, it was finding the people to do the job. For example, the Boeing Plant 2 on the Duwamish River hired about 30,000 people working on a total of 4 assembly lines. However, finding enough employees within the Puget Sound region to provide the parts and sub-assemblies became a bigger challenge once large orders from the government started rolling in. This eventually led to Boeing looking outward besides the Puget Sound region to look for workers and plants. Boeing would go on to use former car dealerships, warehouses, and garages to boost production and meet the government quota. World War II led to Boeing expanding rapidly in the United States and especially the Puget Sound area. Overall, Boeing provided Seattle with rapid economic growth in response to the population growth due to the need of skilled laborers in World War II. The influx of workers and their families has spurred the development of housing, schools, and other infrastructure.